I'd like to welcome everyone to this special screening of the award-winning documentary, Our Story When the Doors Opened. My name is Eric Eastep. I'm the local history librarian here at EVPL. Before I get to the formal introductions, I never waste an opportunity when I have a captive audience to talk about the resources we have at the library. So you'll have to listen to my commercial just for a few minutes before we get to the main event. The Indiana Room is located on the second floor of the library and is a resource center for local and Indiana history. I honestly think it's like the nicest room in the library. We have many maps, city directories, and yearbooks that people find useful in their studies. There's also a preservation studio. My colleague Trista Riggs helps get patrons started on converting their VHS tapes, 8mm film, and other items to a digital format. It's so popular that we're booking out to the end of March. So for both of those, for both the Indiana Room and the Preservation Studio, you can go to our website and request an appointment, and we'd be happy to help you and to work with you. And the appointments are available Monday through Friday from 9 to 5. So I suggest you go there. I've also left my cards on the table and Trista's cards. So if you're interested, please send us an email as well. So I really recommend that. It's a great service and people seem to be very happy with it. We also online have 13,000 images of Evansville history in our digital archive. So I suggest it's kind of fun just to look through that, especially dealing with World War II. So that's a great resource. I'd also like just to put tonight's event into proper context. And I think we have to do an honest accounting of the history of libraries in Evansville, because with the exception of Willard, we have to remember that the libraries in Evansville were segregated up until the mid-1950s. So it's important to remember this context. You know, the first cohort started in 1934 at the University of Evansville. I still don't think that's very long ago. So it's important to remember that as we watch this film about that history and what the people went through. Also, I'd like to recommend a book about Evansville's history. Dr. James McLeod, he couldn't be here tonight, but he wrote an excellent book called Lost Evansville, which covers the civil rights movement in Evansville. There's chapters on desegregation. It's an excellent book. And I think he's made it a mission to speak at every EVPL library too. He's speaking February 17th at 1 o'clock at East on Saturday, Wednesday, March 13th at 6 p.m. at Red Bank, and Tuesday, March 19th at 7 p.m. at West. So he puts on a terrific show. I highly recommend going to that event and possibly buying the book. So, okay, so the commercial's over. I appreciate your patience. Now for tonight's event. After viewing the film, there will be a panel discussion involving Arnell Hill, the writer and producer, and narrator, Aaron Turner, the director, and Liara Carter, a UE senior and one of the primary narrators. And all three of them are here tonight. I know two people had to drive from Indianapolis to come here tonight, so I think I'm very grateful for that. And I think that's wonderful that they did that, made that sacrifice. And without further ado, I'd like to introduce Arnell, and he'll give us a brief introduction before we watch the film.
Well, thank you, Eric, and good evening to everybody here in the room. And to those on Zoom, wherever you're at, thank you for coming in also to this session. My name is Arnell Hill. Before I go on, I want to say hello to my wife who's in Florida right now. Hope you're still going to watch this and not turn the wheel of fortune until it's over. So thank you. Okay. I want to thank Eric, number one, for the invitation to come down and do this presentation to show our story to you all for the Evansville Library's Black History Program, and I really appreciate him inviting us down here. I want to thank Mr. Watez Phelps, who introduced me to Eric. So thank you, Watez. I want to thank Aaron Carter, the director of our story, for doing a special director's cut just for this presentation here. So thank you, Aaron. I want to thank senior at UE, class of 24, Miss Liara Carter right here, for her help also as a freshman long time ago during COVID to narrate this story. And I want to thank God for giving me the assignment to do our story. Now, our story, it's an introduction to the history of Black students at UE Evansville College before that. I produced our story in 2021, right during COVID, on a $3,000 bare bones budget. So there were limitations to what we were doing. But this is chapter one of our story, number one. There are more stories to be told about our history at UE, but this opens the door to show you where we began at, where we're going to in the future. And now if you'll silence your phones, please, here in the room. Here is our story once the door is opened.
Mm. 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 question. Mhm. Mhm.
set, and then I was trying to get her set up on American Home Shield site. But with that, it's the same thing. American Home Shield has that email address, so I had to get the email address to even open an account.
Evansville, Indiana.
Now they're recording.
almost talked about changing. I go the wrong way home. I got home so late last night. I was a little bit. I had to get up this morning and open. So I went to bed a little after 11. But be in bed by 10:30.
Colored. No other Greek organization at Evansville College joined Pi Kappa in welcoming Black students. Black students James Barbee and Fred Duncan were original members of Pi Kappa in 46-47. Duncan was also a veteran of World War II.
Not much is known about their exploits as students, but the 1947-48 link featured Black students Janice Pitt, John Outlaw, Joyce Mormon, Juanita Clark, Kenneth Harlan, Marjorie Watkins, and 4 male students in a pre-med group photo. Sam Brooks and William Bell were in a group photo of the Evansville College choir. Pi Kappa continued as the only interracial fraternity on campus. As the decade neared an end, there were several firsts for Black students at Evansville College. Fred Duncan and William Bell continued being active on campus. They were joined by Angelo Howard, Geraldine Shelton, and Juanita Clark. There is no documentation that Booker Hughes or another Black male graduated from Evansville College before 1949. So it was in the 1948-49 academic year when William Bell, Fred Duncan, and James Barbee became the first known Black males to graduate from Evansville College, some 12 years after Zero Priestley graduated.
William Gilbert Bell majored in secondary education. He was born in February 1925 in Clarksville, Tennessee, to Gilbert and Minnie Bell. At the age of 18, William registered for the draft. He left Evansville College for service in the Marines during World War II. He weighed 130 pounds at 5 feet 10 inches. When Bell returned to Evansville College, he continued his excellence in academics. Mr. Bell was on the dean's list several times and was voted as being a campus notable. He was chosen again as an Evansville College member of Who's Who, a lofty title at Evansville College during those years. Mr. Bell was president of the Glee Club, played the piano, and composed music. Although Mr. Bell's skills were noteworthy in the areas of music and education, the racial discrimination in the United States in those years served as a barrier for Bell to fully utilize and get recognition for his skills. Once he left Evansville College, Mr. Bell worked for several years as an instructor in the Evansville public school system. Evansville schools were segregated based on race. Mr. Bell initially taught Black students only. He was a longtime instructor at Lincoln High School in Evansville. Mr. Bell would later move to Gary, Indiana, teaching in Indiana school districts for 59 years. He retired from the Gary School District in 2003. He passed away 1 year later, at the age of 79. In 2019, Mr. Bell was awarded the Distinguished Alumni Award for his campus achievements in his longtime career as an educator. On his behalf, I accepted the award.
Other news today, Super Bowl mania is officially on. Last night, both teams.
Fred Duncan majored in sociology. Also a veteran of World War II. Duncan was a sorority member of the first interracial fraternity at Evansville College, Pi Kappa. He served as vice president of the fraternity during the initial year. Mr. Duncan was also active in the Evansville community. He assisted in allowing all Black Lincoln High School to play contact sports with all white schools. He was instrumental in having reserved for color signs removed from the Evansville Public Greyhound bus terminal, and he helped to open up Evansville parks to allow Blacks to play on the public tennis courts. James Barbie completed the Big Three of the first Black male graduate of Evansville College. Barbie was also a charter member of Pi Kappa, serving as treasurer during 1 year. A secondary education major, he was also voted as being a campus notable during his tenure at Evansville College. Like Duncan, Barbie became active in pursuing the civil rights of Black people in the Evansville community. The decade of the 1940s came to an end with a small continued presence of Black students at Evansville College.
Well, I'll tell them this
I am a Negro.
I think
Black as the night is black, black like the depths of my Africa. I've been a slave. Caesar told me to keep his doorsteps clean. I brushed the boots of Washington.
I'm gonna tell them you can't
I've
see
been a worker.
Some of it I don't think
From
it's
my
true.
hand, the pyramids arose. I made mortar for the Woolworth building. I am a Negro. Black as the night is black. Black like the depths of my Africa.
As 1950 began, the struggle for civil rights for Black people in the United States continued. The Supreme Court outlawed segregation of Blacks in graduate and law schools. In Topeka, Kansas, an 8-year-old girl named Linda Brown was forced to travel by bus to a distant school because she was not allowed to attend a whites-only elementary school within walking distance of her home. Her father sues the school board, and the Supreme Court agrees to hear the case. At Evansville College, the journey of Black students continued. From 1934 until the late 1940s, the basic campus student social organizations open to Black females was the YWCA and the Student Christian Association, SCA. Zara Priestley and Vera Shane had both been members of the SCA. Due to racial prejudice and traditions, Black females were not allowed to join white sororities. To fill this void, in the winter of 1949, the Ivy League Club was established at Evansville College. The Ivy League Club was a precursor to the establishment of the Black sorority Alpha Kappa Alpha on the campus of Evansville College. Ivy League may have been the first all-Black organization established at Evansville College. Ann Arnett served as president. Other officers were Jacqueline Wiley, Mary Coleman, and Pat Whitaker. The first club consisted of 12 Black females. In October 1951, Emma Wood, Frances Coleman, and Imogen Merritt pledged Alpha Kappa Alpha at Evansville College. From 1949 to the early 1960s, AKA and the Ivy League Club were the only official Black student organizations established at Evansville College. AKA established a Greek sorority for Black female students to join and feel more part of the inclusive college experience. During the 1950s, AKA would attempt to incorporate itself into mainstream student activities at Evansville College. Members of the group were fully aware that total acceptance of them as Black females was still a work in progress. In the spring of 1957, 11 women received pins as members of AKA. In addition, the Ivy League Club still existed for Black female students interested in pledging AKA. It took several decades before traditional sororities at UE admitted Black females. In 1984, 50 years since Sarah Priestley's admittance into Evansville College, and some 30-plus years since the Ivy League Club and AKA were established, a Black female was admitted into the Alpha Omicron Pi sorority chapter at UE. Until traditional sororities were ready to accept Black female members, the Ivy League Club and the sorority Alpha Kappa Alpha filled the void and allowed Black females at UE to experience joining a college sorority. Black student involvement at Evansville College continued in the 1950s. In 1951 to 52, Edmund Fly was on the staff of the student newspaper, The Crescent. Fly was voted the student government vice president. He was also president of Pi Kappa. Mr. Fly graduated from Evansville College with a bachelor's degree in elementary education. In the fall of 1952, Pi Kappa became Delta Kappa. Ed Fly was instrumental in the move to a national organization. Unfortunately, after the change to Delta Kappa, the organization became inactive at Evansville College by the mid-1950s. It would not be until 1969 before UE would see another interracial fraternity. In the 1950s, Charles Hildreth was a member of Phi Mu Alpha, member of Delta Kappa, and vice president of the class of 1954. Jen Smollins becomes the first Black player on an Aces basketball team. Don Ricketts graduates in 1955 with a degree in electronic engineering. He would go on to become a noted scientist and receive the Distinguished Alumni Award at UE in the year 2000.
In the year 1953, the first Black presence on the Evansville College campus, Neely Savannah Strayhorn, retired. The longtime janitor was born in the 1880s, the fourth son of parents Sandy and Hannah. He had one sister. They lived in Madison County, Tennessee, where his father was a farmer. Sometime after 1920, Neely and his wife, Sylvia, came north to Evansville. Hired by the college, his job during the years of the Depression provided stable income for him and his wife. He was also the caretaker of an apartment building where he and his wife lived in an all-white neighborhood. There are no records of he and his wife having children. In 1942, Neely, then in his 50s, even had to register for the draft in World War II. He worked at Evansville College for 27 years. He was a witness to many groundbreaking achievements of Black students at Evansville College. Over those years, he was featured in the student newspaper and was part of several campus events. Apparently popular among students on campus, he allegedly could tell if a new professor would survive at the college. After retiring, Mr. Strayhorn moved back to Madison County, Tennessee, where he died 5 years later.
In 1954, the Supreme Court in Brown v. Board of Education decided that separate but equal was unconstitutional. Emmett Till, a 14-year-old, is killed in Mississippi for allegedly whistling at a white woman. Rosa Parks refuses to give up her seat to a white person on a bus in Montgomery, Alabama. In 1956, Black churches and homes of civil rights leaders are bombed. In 1957, federal troops are used to assist in the integration of a high school in Little Rock, Arkansas. It was in this nationwide environment that these students graced the campus of Evansville College in the 1950s. Not much is known about their experiences yet, but they persevered. The Black struggle for civil rights continued into the 1960s. In the South, students staged sit-in at whites-only lunch counters. Freedom riders are attacked on buses in the South. A Baptist church in Birmingham, Alabama is bombed, killing 4 girls. The bodies of 4 civil rights workers are found in a dam. Mayor Evers is assassinated by a racist in Mississippi.
All we want you to do is keep going with this fight for freedom. And as we stick together here, as you feel the pains of dogs here in Greenwood, we'll feel them in Jackson. And if we feel them in Jackson, you feel them here. And when we get this unity, ladies and gentlemen, nothing can stop us. We're going to win this fight for freedom. Thank you very much.
Once a constant presence on the Evansville College campus, the sorority Alpha Kappa Alpha became dormant. AKA would not resurface until 1989. In 1964 to 1965, Kappa Alpha Psi established a colony at Evansville College called the Spoiler Club. The Kappas became the first Black fraternity established at Evansville College. Like AKA, before them, the Kappas tried to include themselves in the activities at Evansville College. Future actor Ron Glass was a member of the theater department. In 1967, a movement began at colleges across the United States to form Black student union groups. One story shared is that at UE in the late 60s, Black students were not happy with the lack of events at homecoming that Black students could relate to. So one rainy night, several Black students walked over to then President Gray's house on campus to express their grievances. There was new carpet that had just been installed. So the students trudged in from the wet weather outside, expressed their complaint, got the new carpet dirty and muddy, and the Black Student Union was conceived as a future group. The Vietnam War was at its peak in 1968. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated in Memphis, Tennessee. In response to his murder, riots broke out across the United States. In June, Senator Robert Kennedy was assassinated after winning the California presidential primary. The social climate was ripe for change.
All right. There comes a time when people get tired.
All right.
And we are here this evening to say to those who have mistreated us for so long that we are tired.
Help him, Jesus.
All right.
We come here tonight to be saved from the patience that makes us patient with anything less than freedom and justice.
In 1968, the now University of Evansville agreed to establish an African American history course at UE. An October 1968 article in the student newspaper discussed the first Negro history class. It was created for the evening college. In attendance were 29 whites and 7 Negro students. Of those, 11 were teachers, 9 history majors, 1 freshman, and 1 sophomore. The Crescent article stated the class was established based on Negro student demands the prior spring. That same year, Ellen Price became the first and only Black homecoming queen at UE. Student voting made up 2/3 of the vote. A panel of judges made up the final 1/3 vote. UE also promised to provide a maximum of 5 scholarships to qualified Evansville area Black high school students. UE also promised to investigate possible discrimination against Black students by fraternities and sororities at UE. In 1970, the formation of the Black Student Union at UE was approved. In the 1969 to 1970 school year, a group of Black females organized into a group called the Nifty Nine. This photo shows student Pat English, one of the 9. The purpose of the group is unknown. As the 1970s began, a new generation of Black students entered UE. Many were the first in their family to attend college. Black student attempts to get involved in mainstream activities continued. Karen Tipton was a homecoming candidate in 1972 to 1973. Black students were on Student Congress and the Union Board. Miranda Taylor and Jackie Davis were ASECs. Charles Caldwell, class of 1976, graduated and went to Northwestern Law School. He was featured in Ebony magazine a year later as an emerging leader. The Black Student Union remained active in the 1970s. Traditional fraternities, Phi Kappa Tau and Lambda Chi Alpha admitted Black males. As the fall of 1977 began, 5 Black students were on the Aces basketball team. It was the first year of UE's entry into Division I basketball. The school had a new coach, new fast-paced style of play, and an influx of promising new players.
It'll take some time to determine the exact cause of the plane crash, but one thing for sure, it will take even longer for the sorrow and shock of this tragedy to wear off here.
On the night of December 13, 1977, the unthinkable happened. The entire team perished in the crash of the team's chartered plane after it left the Evansville airport.
The community had accepted these boys and this team, and especially the new coach, as their own family. And so it's a very personal loss. It's not something that you can simply read about in the newspaper and then put it out of your mind. It stays with you. We feel a deep personal loss.
The 5 Black players were freshman Warren Alston, Mike Joyner, Barney Lewis, and seniors Ed Washington and Tony Woodburn. With a small percentage of the student body being Black, the loss of 5 Black students was a major impact to the Black student community at UE.
Ron Glass, class of 68, returned to UE for commencement in 1980 to receive the Medal of Honor. Glass had become a regular on a TV sitcom. The commencement speaker was Vernon Jordan, civil rights activist and future advisor to President Clinton. During his speech, Jordan addressed the state of race relations in the United States. When he was finished, he received polite applause. Ron Glass was then recognized and simply said, "It's sure good to be home." He then received a loud, standing ovation that was much louder than the polite applause given Mr. Jordan. That was my graduation year. The difference in the reaction to Mr. Jordan's speech and Ron Glass's 6 words was obvious to me. I recall thinking that the truth that Mr. Jordan covered was something that the UIC audience was not ready to hear. My father later told me he was afraid of how the crowd would react to Mr. Jordan's comments. About a week after the speech, Mr. Jordan was shot in Fort Wayne, Indiana by a white racist. He did survive. Our commencement was moved inside to Robert Stadium that year due to a forecast of rain, but I recall that it was a sunny day when we graduated. I've always wondered if the would-be assassin was in the Evansville area for the outdoor commencement. In the 1980s, more Black Student First continued.
In the 80s, several Black females were admitted into the previously all-white sororities at UE. Delta Sigma Theta was co-host for a Jesse Jackson fundraiser, An Evening with Shirley Chisholm. Lynn Harris and Jackie King became union board presidents. In the 1980s, after a more than 20-year absence, Alpha Kappa Alpha returned to the UE campus. The Black Student Union continued. Later in the 80s, BSU changed their name to the Minority Students Association to reflect the desire to be more inclusive. In 1989, Elwood Baldwin was crowned homecoming king.
Now, what kind of salary do you expect for a regular person?
$250 a week.
$250 a week?
Yeah.
Sit down. I'm going to give you $1,200 a month, and I will take $350 for taxes.
Whoa.
Huh? Yeah. Now, because see, the government comes for the regular people first.
In the 1990s, there was an established Black middle class. Many gains had occurred over the years, but a segment of African Americans were still left behind. On the UE campus, after becoming the Cultural Diversity Club, the Black Student Union returned as a group on campus in 1997 to 1998. A small number of students continued the BSU group through the 90s up until today. In the early 2000 timeframe, several students were recognized for academic excellence. Erica Corbin, 03, was the outstanding senior female. Jamila Brown, 06, was also the outstanding senior female. In 07, Brandon Patton Jackson was the outstanding senior male. In 2007, Carice Buchanan became the first Black student government president at UE. Black alumni received major recognition. Donna Ricketts, class of 1955, and Ron Glass, class of 1968, received the Distinguished Alumni Award. Rose Mays, class of 1967, and Vera Shane, class of 1939, received the Medal of Honor.
So my message to the young people, simply this: keep on keeping on. It isn't by size that you win or you fail. Be the best of whatever you are.
These are just some of the stories and accomplishments of Black students at UE. There are other stories yet to be told, accomplishments yet to be recognized. It is clear that Black students, once allowed to attend UE, made a positive impact at the college. During the early years, they persevered during times when racism and segregation was common in the United States of America. We say thank you to such pioneers as Zira Priestley, Vera Shane, Pat Alves, Booker Hughes, William Bell, Fred Duncan, James Barbee, Don Ricketts, Rose Mays, Ron Glass, Pi Kappa, Alpha Kappa Alpha, Kappa Alpha Psi, the Black Student Union, and all those who persevered during the journey. That was chapter 1, everybody. I did want to add a few things. I discovered in the past few months there was a fourth Black male graduate I didn't know of in 1949. His name was Major Austin, and I'm trying to still get a photograph of him. There was none at all available at UE, so he's another one of my mysteries to learn about. Okay. And also Angela Williams, you saw, was a worker at UE in the alumni office. She passed away suddenly in 2017, but she was a major force in our Black alumni organization to support us over the years, and we miss her very much since then. Okay. A couple of other notes. As far as background to where this came from, this documentary, it was a PowerPoint presentation originally in 2007, and it was on the UE website for several years, and it kind of disappeared around 2019. And I was trying to figure out, okay, how can I create a lasting document that would go on for a while beyond a PowerPoint presentation? That's where this idea for the video came about. And in 2020, in December, I think I hired Aaron to be the videographer. He is the son of a friend of mine, so sometimes it's who you know, not what you know. So he did a great job, as you saw there. Okay. Then I asked Dr. Shelley for some student volunteers to help me do this video. And we got two, I think, students' names. I wanted to have a male and a female do the audio, but as you saw, it was mainly Lyra, the primary UE force, did a great job, of course. So I thank her again for, during COVID, as a freshman at that time, to step forward and help out. That was, to me, amazing during COVID especially. So, but that was the original plan, to have a female and a male only, and not me be involved at all. But I guess COVID kind of changed little things there. So that's some of the background. But I do want to say one thing. There's more stories to be told. And I understand that before Zira Priestley was the official Black student to be at UE, there may have been I guess a light-skinned mulatto student who could pass for white, who may have either been at Morris, is it Morris Hill? Yeah, Morris Hill or Evansville College, but I won't let that family step up and tell that story. I don't want to, reveal anything, but that's on them to come forward and tell that story. But that's my time. I'll defer to Aaron and Lyra now.
Hi, everybody. My name is Lyra Carter. I am a senior public health major at UE, and I'm the other voice you hear alongside Mr. Arnell in the film. And I just wanted to say thank you to God for, allowing me this opportunity to do this, and just for Mr. Arnell and Mr. Aaron for allowing me this opportunity to, share our story. Yeah, so like Mr. Arnell said, I got involved during my freshman year at UE during pandemic, so I came in during that time. I'm a fellow scholar, so Dr. Shelby, he's my advisor, and so he had emailed us saying he needs some volunteers to do kind of like a audition, if you will, in the CDI Center. And so I'm very proactive. I love to just get involved in stuff. So I signed up, and then there was another student involved, but I was the only one eventually who was available for it. And so that's kind of how that went. And so we would like record on Zoom a lot and practice over and over. And I'm just, again, like so thankful for this opportunity. And one thing I would want like young people to take away specifically is that our stories matter and that we should be embracing our stories, especially like right now with the climate of politically, like with people, kind of gatekeeping or like trying to not tell our stories. I think it's just very important that we share that. And like I said, Mr. Hale said, there's more stories to be told. So yeah, thank you guys.
And finally, my name is Aaron Turner. I am the director and the editor, pretty much outside of the script, did a lot of the work behind putting this together, getting all the visuals together for this. It's been a long road to get to this point in time, and I'm still shocked to see the amount of interest that this film has gained since I first worked on it, or started working on it in 2020. When I was first approached by Mr. Hill with his script and the concept of this film, I was compelled to do something bigger than I had ever really done before visually. I'm usually used to working on videos that are like 30 seconds to 2 minutes long. And so when he came with me with a 30-page script, I was like, I don't know about this, you know? But yeah, I was listening to my dad and my wife at the time. My wife currently told me, you know, you should take a chance, see what happens, and, you know, utilize your skill set to create something different that you haven't really done before. So this is really my first long form documentary that I've worked on. And, in 2021, we finished it. It got more recognition than I thought it would ever happen with it. When it was accepted into Heartland Film Festival, and then I think it was the Indie Film Fest as well. And 2022 it was able to be streamed on other platforms as well. And when I found out last year about this event here, that this was going to be happening, the news came at an interesting time, because about a couple weeks after I found out about it, I had got laid off of my job, and I was trying to figure out, okay, what can I do to keep myself mentally busy during this time frame? And thought immediately, like, I remembered about this event coming up, and I was like, okay, this is a good opportunity for me to pretty much go back and touch up on a lot of what the first cut was. And so I spent the last 3 months putting together a director's cut, adding in a bunch of visuals, archival footage, improving the pacing of the film, and just overall using my skill set that I've developed over the last 2 to 3 years within, visual storytelling, and just learning how to let a piece breathe and make sense over time. So I'm ecstatic how it turned out. I hope you guys enjoyed it. And I'm looking forward to more stories to come. I think there's so much more information that can be pulled out of this documentary, and the stories of the people that were in this film that we didn't even really get to touch on. So hopefully we'll get to see that in future iterations. And overall, I think if I had to leave one message for you, is as far as like what's the most important thing to take away from this, is that all it really takes is one person to really get the ball moving on stuff. I was thinking about, as far as the script, Mr. Hill, he put most of this together and was able to initiate with me. But even going further back from that, you're thinking of Zira and her story, and you're thinking of the time, the climate of the environment that existed with the segregation and all that. You're thinking of the president at the time just allowing a Black student to initially come to the campus and have to be within that environment. So a lot of times it just takes one person to make things happen, open the doors for future people and generations to come in and make some beautiful stuff happen. So thank you.
I'd like to put another question. I don't think we need a microphone. Yeah, are there any questions from the audience?
So where can we stream and watch this?
Being recorded. But don't you have a YouTube channel?
Yes. So in about the next couple of days, if not weeks or so, I'll be releasing this on YouTube so that anyone can have a chance to watch this, share it easily from there. It'll be my personal channel, but I'll make sure that somehow for you to find that information. Yeah, you can search.
And I'll see it posted on the library webpage, maybe.
I graduated in 97, and so watching this, I lived through some of it, documentary. It's like, yeah, that was my life. So that was fantastic.
Thank you.
Doing
in-depth interview. Come around and
Yeah. Yeah, that was my frustration. I was the first historian for our Black alumni group in 2007, and I was given the direction then to tell or research our history and just tell the story. So at that time, I wrote to alumni who were graduates, I guess, maybe in the 40s and 50s, but I got no response, and that kind of, was a downer. And then finally, Vera Shane responded, to the first and only one who responded back in those timeframes. So I did try to reach out to living older graduates, but unfortunately, I'm not sure why they didn't respond. But if I could have reached them, I could have told their stories in more detail, but I can't explain why they didn't respond. But that was my first attempt I got info from UE to contact them, and I tried that, but they didn't respond. So if you have family members who have a story to tell, get those stories from them, please, don't let them die with their stories. They have had important experiences at UE, if they were UE graduates there. So urge them to tell you what they went through. If they, were like us, minority students, need your help in that area, because I tried, but that was the frustration that nobody wanted to talk except Vera Shane.
that it didn't show it, but my question is, during that time, was there actually any racial unrest on the campus?
I think I've heard about there were some in maybe the 70s as far as protests, but I don't recall any like violence or things like that I was told about on the UE campus. And if there were any negative things, people have not told those stories yet. And that's one of my concerns, that things happened that were kept quiet because those experiences are not, loving things to remember and tell people about. But things probably happened, but nobody's come forward to tell them. And that's one of my issues. Somebody's got to step forward and, tell those sad stories. And they're out there. Can you imagine the 1930s and 40s, what it was like in Evansville as a Black person? I've read about in Dallas Sprinkle's book, it wasn't the best of times. So there are some stories out there that didn't have a happy ending. Again, Pat Alvarez left here after his sophomore year, and I've wondered, why did he leave her? And I thought maybe he was run out of town for some reason, but it happened. It's real life things that happened back in those days. So somebody knows the story, but nobody stepped forward to tell it yet. So that's one of my desires, that somebody step forward and just share, here's what happened, and let us know. Not that I'm aware of. I know that Vera Shane, I think one of her nephews was there, I think in the maybe early 80s, I believe, but I'm not sure if anybody's there who I can address personally that I know about. But the Shane family had a legacy here for years, I know.
Like to drop it out because they're work. But I just realized the website was, after that they started some group or something, so that was working down. Still very there really was a lot of Christmas service.
And as to why I did this, I've always felt that if you want lemonade, nobody's making it for you. You got to make it yourself. And that's what I did. Made this documentary to tell our story. I don't believe in waiting on anybody to do anything. If you have time and money, do it yourself. And so that's what I did. I invested my money to get this story told thanks to Aaron's skills and Liera's help, it turned out pretty well for a first effort. So I'm proud of them for, what they did.
So, well, I have two things. The first is, have you reached out to anyone to see possibly about having a link or something on UWE's website or the alumni? Just some way to share that. And then the second part, if you were going to continue with the stories, are you going to then go on down the line, like all the way to kind of current?
The first part, there was a link on the alumni website under our organization, UEAAA, that had the PowerPoint slides on there a long time ago. And there's a link there right now for the documentary it's a trailer. I'm trying to have Jennifer Calderon put the link that Aaron's going to put out there on that website so you can go in there and pull it up and then view it. So that's the next step, to put the director's cut out there, so that way somebody can access it from any place in the world and see what happened here as far as our history. So that's that plan. Your second question, I would want other alumni besides myself to now step forward and help out with this effort. I've been on this journey for like 16 years now, trying to document our history, and there are others out there who have pretty sure more talent and more money than I do, who can help out in this effort. So I think it's a collective effort to help make the lemonade. My lemonades are getting kind of dry now, so it doesn't taste that well anymore. So for you alumni watching this, please step forward and help tell the stories. If it comes out that there was a Black student who passed for white, tell that story. Please try to identify what happened to Pat Alves. Was there a Black graduate before 1949? I think there was, but the records don't show that. But I can't believe that it took that long for a Black male to graduate from UE. I think back in those days, it was kind of a thought that don't give Black males credit for being smart. So if maybe somebody graduated, they didn't recognize that he was, a graduate at UE, but I'm pretty sure somebody had to graduate before 49, but that's another story that's been kept kind of quiet, I think. Juarez.
Comment on what we're doing now. I guess further answer Steve's question about doing over your experience with business.
I'll try to, from my knowledge, but if I don't do a good job, help me out here. But we're trying to get involved with, UE, various areas in the college to just create an environment here that supports Black students. We don't want them to come here for 1 year and then, leave, the one and done concept. But you got to have a culture at UE that supports Black student interest. And that involves our culture being represented at UE. So to make it more comfortable, a lot of students come here, just don't feel comfortable because it's foreign to them, but we can create support, things for them to do, whether it's social events, academic events that include them, or include things in the courses that address, our culture more. So we're trying to work with Dr. Shelby's office a little bit also in that area to just create a more improved dialogue on those areas so we can improve things for students to follow, keep on coming to UE in the future and make things better climate-wise. So, but that's how I can address that, Juarez. So maybe sure you can. I was here last year for your class, I believe, and we talked about just the environment here at UE, what they were going through as far as a variety of things, what they felt about the environment and all that. And I felt that not much had changed since I was here in the 1970s, and that kind of made me sad to think, wow, it hasn't changed that much. The culture is still about the same. I was a 1980 graduate of UE, and this is 2023 now, so that's what, 43 years, and it feels the same. Something's wrong with that. So, we got to move forward, not backwards, and stay in the same place. So when somebody speaks up about their concerns, listen to them and what they're saying, because it's what they feel. An event happened here last year where some students were, upset about being called out of their name, but that was a heartfelt emotion they felt. I felt bad for them that they felt bad, being called out of their name. But, and I thought to myself, wow, this is the same when I was there, and it shouldn't be like that.
Are there any other questions?
I'm not aware, but it's Black History Month, and as we celebrate it, has this documentary been offered on UE campus? Is that in the works, or has it happened already?
I know it was played on campus, I believe, last year. I'm not sure what the event was, but it has been played on campus, but I'm not sure about formally, but what is.
We have offered the documentary is a part of temporary University of Evansville class that has ran for successive semesters and will be picked up again in another semester. And it is required viewing for the class, and the students are required to write a critique on the documentary. What are their thoughts, and how is it even relative to what their experiences may be, and how could it literally influence change as we continue to go forward. So it is required viewing for that particular University of Evansville alumni class. It's developed as a change lab. I have to give credit to Change Lab staff. They've done a wonderful job inviting us in and allowing us to develop the contemporary African American alumni class.
And I do want to share there have been 5 distinguished alumni winners at this college who are Black, and that's William Bell, Donald Ricketts, Joyce Germaine Bowes, Andra Berry, and Rose Mays. And 3 Medal of Honor winners, Ron Glass, Rose Mays, and Vera Shane. And 4 Eddie Bates volunteer winners, Sharon Granberry, Michael Woodard, Bertie Harrison, who's here in the office today, and Lana Burton. So we have made positive accomplishments to the school and will continue to do so.
Your research, did you have conversations with the Indiana United Methodist Church, or were you given access to the Methodist archives at DePaul University? I don't know if there would be UE material there, but there could be.
Well, I'll explain what I tried to do in 2007. I wrote to 2 UE history professors for their advice on how to do the research, but I got no response. So at that point, I just, on my own, continued to do research that I could best do from what I knew about how to do. So, and that was, the bare bones, just going through the archives in the library at UE, page by page for 2 days, through the links from Morris Hill days up to the present, in crescents, page by page, 10 hours in the library for like 2 days in a row. Had no help. I tried to get advice from professors here, but didn't respond. So that didn't stop me, though. I persevered because, again, I love lemonade, so I made it myself. Okay.
I said we conducted a tour for the United Methodist Church here this past Saturday at the Evansville African American Museum. And fortunately, in that audience, the program chair, when I went to the BLS program, it would be Dr. Lynn Penland. So we're looking at doing some more work with the Methodist Church here in Evansville, further answer that question. We did just give a tour to them. And you saw where Miss Miller, there's her son in the back, by the way, director of the African American Museum. I think it was late, but his mom was the one that taught the African American Studies class at U of E in the 1970s. So we're going to link all that together. We're going to talk more. The Methodist Church has some very interesting documents, historical documents about it. It was one of the first Black schools in Evansville was hosted by the Methodist Church here. So we will be talking with them, bring some more stuff.
She's not telling you, but she is a Methodist Church pastor.
Okay, well, we have the input to it.
So I'm wondering why I didn't get to hear about that.
So news travels fast now.
See, there are communication problems in all areas of our culture.
And one last comment. When that plane crashed in '77, that was a terrible event, and that was 11% of the Black population at that time on students of campus. And I don't think you ever realized that that was a major impact on us because there's very few of us here. So, you know, when things happen that affect Black students, think about the percentage. It's very small here. If something happens, you know, it's a deep impact on us, deep impact.
Yeah. Last comment for me, anyway. We have a scholarship named in honor of Lyra Carter, the first graduate in 1938. So just want to keep that on everyone's radar. If you haven't done your Christmas giving, do consider the Lyra Carter Scholarship that is hosted by the University of Evansville.
And that is given out every year, and it began, the first recipient was in 2002.
And
so it's been steady.
And I would like to add, I am also a Zero Prissy Carter Scholar, so it does benefit my students. So please.
I'd just like to say a couple things before we wrap up. First of all, I apologize for the technical difficulties. It's ambitious to try to screen things, and sometimes you fly too close to the stop. The problem did get fixed. Second thing is, I forgot to mention this when Nerves got the best of me, but I'd like to thank Watez especially because he's the one that put the idea in my head to stage this event. So thanks to Watez. Finally, I would also like to say that we do digitize organizations' records, and we can go to your organization and help with the digitization process. So if you're interested in that at all, I encourage you to get a hold of me or my colleague Trista. We'd be happy to talk to you about that. Other than that, I'd like to thank everyone for coming. Very special.
Thank you all for coming out.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, sir, how you doing?
Really well done.
That was fun. I
haven't seen it before. I haven't seen it. That's fabulous. So thank you for doing it.